Hail you Warhammer players and welcome to the Yup! Here you have me, Jeremy Nakano, with my co-host Joey. How we doing, Joey?
Doing all right.
And just in case people want to know, you can find me over on TikTok at the allday40k account. And where can they find you, Joey?
You can find me on Instagram over at Beddingfield Painting.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Today's episode is called the Chaos Meta, and we're calling that because it is the season, the year of chaos, with so many cool things coming around with the new demon detachments. Not to mention, we have all of the CSM coming in, all of the different CSM, where we get to see huge overhauls to Thousand Suns and minor overhauls to World Eaters and pretty significant changes to the Death Guard, which is all exciting. And we're going to jump into that and really talk about, how we plan to deal with them, and just the general stuff overall. That's good.
Yeah.
So, but before that, let's talk about what we're working on. Joey, what you working on?
I am working on my display board for the Drukhari, I have ideas in my head, and I just gotta be able to get them down. Dale at Real Deal here in Coeur d'Alene is printing we found some like Drukhari style buildings and terrain pieces and things, so he's printing off some options for me to use there, and then most of that I believe should be done tomorrow, and then I can really start looking at mapping out how I want things to be. I've got a general layout idea in my head, but once I have all of that terrain actually laid down on a piece of board, I can really start figuring it out. So working on that, and then I finally acquired Hellions, so those are going to need to get painted because they're phenomenal.
What's a Hellion?
A Hellion is a green. It's a witch on a green goblin surfboard.
Dope. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like your disc unit.
Pretty much, yeah. They're mounted. It's mounted. I think they might be infantry, but I know they're mounted. Their movement 14. They're T4 because of the board or the bike or however you want to look at it.
Oh,
they're 2 wounds.
Up from the T3.
Yeah, they're up from T3. They're still 3 attacks apiece. They are base sustained 1 and they're damage 2.
Wow, that's pretty good.
At strength 4, which is also important.
Okay.
So they are pretty, on paper, they're pretty wild.
So what hole do they fill that you currently have army-wise?
For me, they are replacing what I was running the 6-pack of Grotesques. So for me, they're replacing that as another high output damage 2. Where, yes, Incubi are that, but Incubi, for me, are very, precision knives, and the Grotesques were kind of a thing that I could just throw wherever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the idea with the Hellions. They're fast and they're cheap. It's 150 points for 10.
That's pretty good.
So
for that speed,
and they move 14. Notably, I'm trying Reaper's Wager, taking a page out of Scari's book and not running Harlequin units.
Wow.
Just running the detachment for the stratagems because they're very good strats. So
yeah, they really are. Okay. That's cool. Sounds like fun. Can't wait to see it. What am I working on? I'm still, ticking away at this here Storm Raven on my shelf. And then I ordered some Assault Centurions because that list looks really fun to play. The Stormlance list that John's been playing. Yep. And I think for what's coming in the meta, it's kind of it might be necessary. But we'll see how it goes. And of course, Assault Centurions are something that have not been really celebrated or played with much this edition because move 4 sucks. But they have sustained 2 into vehicles, and they hit like a truck.
Okay.
So
sure,
they kill stuff pretty well. Obviously, they do really well in Blood Angels, but still, Stormlance, Advance and Charge, can over double their movement. So
Right. And do they still get las cannons, or are they just melee?
they do have chest guns. I forget which ones they are though.
Oh, okay. But they just have the like drill hand
Yeah,
things.
they got drill
Okay.
hands. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you rarely ever shoot them because they're almost always charging.
Right.
Advancing and charging, especially if you're playing with Stormlance or something along those lines.
Mhm.
Okay, and then let's see here. So I'm as far as upcoming tournaments are concerned, I do have Ellensburg in the end of the month, and then I'm also considering Mountain West over in Utah on like the 20th. So that would be a really fun one to do. I have a bunch of like flight credit that I can take advantage of to make that a little bit easier and cheaper to
Sure.
handle. I believe Bailey and Nick want to make their way out there potentially to get ready for the Tacoma event. And then I would have the Tacoma event as well in July. So that'll be 3 GTs in like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Less than that, 5 weeks or so, 5,
Busy.
6 weeks. So, but that's probably going to be my last one until December. So,
Sure.
yeah, there's not a lot of them to be able to get in from July until the end of the year. So we'll see how it goes. I just want to get in as many as I can. Luckily, my girlfriend is being very gracious in saying that I can go do these things rather than stick around here and be, and just be a better partner.
Existent. Sure.
And then I got to play Into the New T-Suns, which is going to help with some of the analysis in today's video / podcast. So I won that game. It was fun. I played into Dina. Hey, Dina. And they put on the vehicle detachment, which I thought was interesting. And we'll get into those details as we go.
Yeah.
So let's pop into CSM as a whole, or just this chaos meta that we're gonna find ourselves in, because everyone's dusting off their death guard right now, which really bears out. They have like a 58% win rate right now, and like that's just from over the weekend, and I think they've won 4 events in the last 2 weeks at least. So that said, what do you think of them so far? Did you play them at the tournament?
I did not actually.
Neither did I.
I did not have the pleasure. So, just looking at it, like what is nice, at least for me, I think what's like cool to look at from a like balanced game perspective, the fact that they do have like 3 different competitively viable detachments.
It's really good.
They have options. Like not every list looks the same. Not every detachment is the same. They don't play the same. It's good and bad, right? For like these first 2 weeks was kind of bad because you play one dude, next round you play Death Guard again, but he has a different detachment. So everything you learned in your last game doesn't really matter. But as we move forward, like that's fine. It's nice to just have the options and be able to see different things out of a codex. And especially out of an army that previously kind of forever has been just
dog shit.
Why? Well, it wasn't great, but also just unbelievably one-dimensional. Was like, this is what you're gonna see, this is how it's gonna play, and that's it.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about like you could do all these different things with them now, but you know what I gotta say? I don't feel that they're like interesting, honestly. I find that most of the Death Guard detachments just feel like Marines but tough.
Sure.
Because you have your vehicle detachment, you have your mess with my like, basic army rule detachment. Like nothing feels really interesting when it comes to them. They're just like, oh, we have Terminators that are as good as Deathwing Knights, but we could bring an extra one. Or 3 to make more effective choices than you can only ever bring 5 with your Dark Angels. Or it feels like, the vehicle detachment feels like every other vehicle detachment in the game. So I don't know. They don't, to me, seem interesting. In all fairness,
that's fair. I will say that does.
Them.
I will say that does come from my perspective. Would be that comes from the perspective of a Marine player.
Fair enough.
But that doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? It doesn't mean that it's bad. For me, like, I agree with you that from a design standpoint for the state, like the current state of 40K, no, they're not doing anything interesting or new. For the army of Death Guard, all of these things are new. So
Yeah,
that's the,
I
like,
suppose you're
it's
right.
interesting for longtime Death Guard players. It is interesting to be able to try new things, but those new things are just things that everybody else has been able to do for 6 months now.
Yeah, I suppose. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Death Guard's been backed into a corner with the way the contagions work, and how you can only ever have kind of a slow moving army with
Right.
those rules. Otherwise, you're just broken. Because if you had like even a remotely mobile detachment, right, something that didn't suck in terms of getting around, something like a Grey Knight detachment, like something similar to that, where you get to pick units up and drop them down, like actual real uppy downy rules. Then you could say, like, okay, you have more competitive, like interesting competitive builds, but as it stands, it's just like I just do damage different moving slowly.
Right. Yeah, which is fair.
But as far as like data slate goes coming in for those Death Guard, I feel like they're gonna get hit pretty hard from a point cost perspective.
Sure.
And maybe not like, malleted, but like you should see most of their codex go up 5-10%, like pretty much
Yeah, I
across
think
the
like
board.
yeah,
What do you
I think
think?
the average list, the average 2,000 point list, I think probably goes up 10-ish%. And that's probably for like that is for the
And
best.
just
Like they
lose a
are,
unit,
yeah, they'll lose a unit because right now, like looking at Death Guard lists, they just get to bring everything, and they don't actually have to make a decision
Yeah, I feel
in list
cheated.
building, and just bringing them back to like, hey man, make one choice, like that'll be fine.
Yeah,
But also,
yeah.
I mean,
So you
we're
don't get to
getting new
bring your
missions,
like.
and it's gonna change some things. Well, not necessarily the missions, but the new secondary deck is pretty different. So
Yeah, the new secondary deck is different and looks good. I think they shored up a lot of problems, which is really nice. I think that's
yeah,
my
I
favorite
think so.
part about that deck.
There are definitely things about it that I don't like.
I'm more curious about the missions.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the missions actually change. Only 2 terrain layouts changed, and they didn't change like massively, which is whatever. I don't dislike the terrain layouts at the moment, so.
When it comes to the, what is it? Like I love how people will immediately show like the new like fake mission map where it's like the chevron that goes on like a military uniform, and I'm like, I don't care about that. That's how I feel when I see that stuff. I don't know about you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much like you look at those, or you look at like it's all the asymmetrical stuff, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm never playing with those anyway, so I don't care. It just super doesn't matter. And then you look at like there's the twists, but you do the mission secondary, or like the mission secondary or a twist, and no tournament's going to do a twist, so it doesn't matter.
No.
So it's a little silly.
Yeah, like
I
everybody,
do like the
every time that they've
direction.
tried these. Go ahead. We're out of sync here. You're lagging pretty hard there, buddy.
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I noticed it looked like you were. Well, I guess that's the problem, is it looked like it was taking a second for you to hear me. Interesting.
Yeah.
Is it
no tournament in their right mind is gonna run those extra like twists, and because like nobody has run a secret mission that absolutely hasn't had to at like, you're down by 50 going into turn 4 or whatever since I don't know, the beginning of Pariah. Nobody ran the old stuff because it was stupid. Like
And I think
Yeah.
that you're going to end
Just
up
make
with
the
a lot of the
secondaries more
same.
competitive, which they did.
Yes, and I think that you're going to end up with a lot of that too, of the replacement for secret missions. I really like that you get to do them every turn. They're only 3 points. It's just to kind of help you get back into the game a little bit, instead of being like, oh, I'm just going to sack the first 3 turns and then take the secret mission and win because I'm Grey Knights and I uppy downy. So
Right. Right. That was busted and dumb.
yeah.
But it sure was fun. Okay. We went off the rails a little bit there when it came to Death Guard, but that's fine. They're a great faction. Detachments are strong. Units are cheap. Units are really objectively good. Mortarion's a nice little piece that you can bring. Well, a nice big piece that you could bring. But by no means are you locked into bringing him every time you play.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about the big reds. How about them World Eaters? What have you seen, felt about them so far?
It's interesting. There are things about them. There are things in that codex that I do like. There are things in that codex I think are good. They are quite different than what they previously were. It is a little odd just trying to figure out where GW decided to put certain things and certain like design aspects of that army, but it seems more, instead of just being like, oh, they're this melee army and they're going to run forward and they're going to advance and charge and they're going to punch you in the face. Now it's like, well, they are a melee army, but it's not as deadly as it was. But because of that, here's the other half of their army, which is just surprisingly good short range shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, like wicked good. It's just so spiky.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, it's interesting from a design standpoint, because you think, why wouldn't, even from a corn person who just wants to fight, like, why wouldn't you be shooting on your way in?
Right. I mean, you should be. So it's a game with guns. You got to have and use guns. It's that simple. Yeah. When it comes to Big Red, it's nice to see that Angron isn't a must-have piece, and I think as like a general build that everyone like that they seem to be doing with all Primarchs is that they're cool to have, but they are not at all mandatory, and that's for every single codex that they've released so far.
Right.
Since they've made changes to these armies, and they all required having them before. So like it's just a good design shift that there is a detachment that supports them, but not necessarily, they're not so strong that you have to bring them.
Right. Yeah, you can play whatever. It's nice that World Leaders are not what they were, which it was, you play Angron, and if you're not playing Angron, then you should just play Blood Angels because they're better melee Marines.
Right. Just in general.
Yeah, so having
and
the
then
option
just
is nice.
so far as and then just so far as how the data is proving out, like World Eaters seem to be kind of at the bottom because of their weirder design space that they're in. At the 46th percentile win rate, at least for this past weekend, according to the Meta Monday site. So they're interesting. They're always cool. I like playing against World Eaters almost always, just because you see cool stuff and it's just such a different melee pressure than almost everyone else. Because if they catch you, that unit dies. Otherwise, it's just kind of a test for you. And maybe this sounds like dickish to say, but it's just a test for you. Is can you just set your angles up and use your measuring tape to beat your opponent? And that's literally all it is, it feels like.
Which is important. I will say that I think, because we've talked about how the CSM demon detachments so far in the books have not been very good. The Emperor's Children one is very mediocre. The Death Guard one, honestly, I think sucks. The Thousand Suns one is weird. There's just no point in bringing it. But the World Eaters, the Khorne Demonkin detachment, I actually think is fantastic. I think it's really good.
Okay. That's awesome. So what makes it good? What do you think?
Notably, and I think it's with I'm pretty sure it's with an enhancement, but you can have like the Chaos Lord on Juggernaut lead the Demon Blood Crushers.
Oh, that's fun.
And so then they get um the World Eaters blood surge rules or whatever their like table thing is. And then you have your new blood tithe system. So when you kill units, you roll the dice and maybe get points, but those points only buff the demons. But the final buff that it gives the demons is it gives them the World Eaters rule. So at a certain point in the game, all of your demons just have your blood tithe ability.
Oh, that's great.
And the Corn Demons just
Okay.
objectively are very good data sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly hit hard. And they don't necessarily that doesn't necessarily bear out in other detachments where Corn Demons can go, let alone the Corn Demon detachment itself.
Right.
But it's interesting that they have strong data sheets, yet they just kind of die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's weird. Okay. So I don't think there's anything else we could talk about in terms of World Eaters and what you're going to see from them. Less Angron and more everything else.
Yep.
And be wary of the triple shooting list with the dogs. What are they called? The gigantic dogs with 3 cannons.
Oh, Forge Fiends?
Forge Fiends. Forge Friends. Yeah. Watch out for those. If they get close enough and shoot you, they could outright just drop almost anything they target if they roll hot enough.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
They can get pretty crazy. They also World Eaters kept Hellbrutes, and those things are still really good.
Hellbrutes, I feel like, and this to me, Hellbrutes are windmill slam 3 of them in every list. That's like what 110 points for a model that slaps.
Yeah, it does slap, and potentially slaps again,
and
then again, and then again. So,
like you get to bring all kinds of different melee profiles. They have an invuln.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And they're like T9, like or T8 or 9, and that's just good. That's just good stuff.
It's
you
just
stick
a
it behind a
very
wall.
good.
And good luck.
Yeah, it's a really good stat line for point cost, and then it also has damage output, so you're just not upset really with anything about it.
Yeah, like if you're not running a bunch of those, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like if you're playing CSM, 1 to 2 to 3, I feel like are just normal. You should have them
for World Eaters.
That goes for I mean honestly for just about anyone considering their strength. But it just I don't know what the points are in other codexes.
No, so they don't exist in the other codexes.
What am I thinking of then?
I'm not sure. They're not in Emperor's Children, and they are not in Thousand Sons. I don't remember if they're in Death Guard still or not, but they are in CSM.
Okay, I think Thousand Sons might have them.
They might.
I think they do.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know
Emperor's
Children do not have them.
Yeah, well, Emperor's Children are a special case. Speaking of Emperor's Children, let's talk about the Marines that are, in my opinion, one of the most interesting like new releases that they've done.
They're so cool
since I've been around. Yeah, so like the very first new release I saw was Votann, and that was such an underwhelming release. Followed by like the immediate nerf that hurt so bad. And then watching the new what is it? The new Imperium detachment, which is literal trash. Just an amalgamation of already existing units, the Imperial agents.
Yep.
And then finally getting like a cool new detachment being the Emperor's Children. We did go into detail on the podcast already in terms of what this army does. But let's kind of talk about where they're at right now as far as win rates and really the stuff you should look out for. So what do you think as far as going into most of these Emperor Children detachments? What do you got to look out for the most?
Honestly, I think it is going to be matchup dependent. for whatever you like, being whatever you are playing when you are playing against the Emperor's Children. If you can screen, you can screen. I did play them at Storm Silence. I was lucky enough to win attacker defender and deploy first, so I got to put him in blue horror jail, which is great. If you can't do that, then you kind of just have to set up other screens to let them hit things that don't matter. Move block the Demon Princes however you can. Noise Marines slap. I've
they do.
I've changed my tone on Noise Marines pretty aggressively. They're fantastic. They are very, very, very good. And the contrast to that is that I think Flawless Blades are very okay.
They're a solid unit.
Flawless
You don't bring
Blades,
3
they're
units
just,
of them.
Yeah, they're okay. Yeah, but Noise Marines are just so good. They're so good.
It's just a variety of good shooting that ignores cover.
My original argument of them being 3 wounds, I'm going to throw that out the window. I would hate life. However, like, part of me does still want them to be battle line, but if they were battle line, they would need to be more expensive.
Yeah.
At their current point cost, they are fine not being battle line. If you could bring 6 of them, they would need to be more expensive.
Yeah, they're so good. They're unbelievably good. They're coming in right now at a 51% win rate. They have 1 event win, maybe 2 over the course since they've been out, 2 or 3. I think they're in a really good spot from the as far as the meta goes, because they just present a lot of problems that people don't know how to deal with, which is, things in vehicles getting out and charging after the vehicle moves. It's a big problem for people.
Yeah.
They're fast, they're strong, their shooting is good at mid-range. And maybe this is just, my experience with an opponent, but it doesn't feel like they have much in the way of vehicle killing prowess. So they might struggle into those big, thick armies. So that's something to be aware of. And then, of course, the power of the measuring tape.
You're really hoping to roll hot with, like, your Blast Masters. They're only strength 10. You're hoping to roll a high number of mortal wounds when your Demon Princes charge in. And, like, when those things don't happen, then they kind of start struggling. Which was the list philosophy that my opponent had at Storm, and that's why he had 2 Huntsmen, so that he had that punching power that the army doesn't have.
Right. But if you're going into, say 18 Noise Marines and vehicles and really not a lot of punch outside of that, like, you can be a little more aggressive to in a sense. We're not necessarily getting in their face, but putting yourself out there, because their shooting isn't like super scary, especially if you do have access to Armor of Contempt, and you can see what, like, as long as it's only like 1 Noise Marine shooting at you, 1 unit of them, then you're generally going to be okay. Unless they can pile in multiple. So just be wary of that. They're super unique. They're fun to play against. I think that's the best part, is they're fun to play against. They have just enough rules and trickery that is like, okay, so you can't just get away with everything, which is nice. Just enough, like, it doesn't really come into play the fall, but like, you can't charge the target you fell back from like super hard, but it does make it so it doesn't feel oppressive playing into them, which is great.
Yeah, I think they're really cool. In, like, you have here, in the right hands, then yeah, absolutely. Like, they're really cool. They're really fun. When the right person picks them up, they're really strong, but they're still fun. So I think they're
John Lennon
they're
makes
very
them the best army in the game.
Sure. But like, I think they're actually a surprisingly healthier army than I was expecting them to be.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be a lot stronger, and they just seem like There is a certain talent required to really pull it off, which it'll be interesting to see like late edition once people really start getting all their armies together and some real reps in on them, where it goes, what they become. But for now, they're at a 51%, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Great. So let's talk about the newest codex that is available now, which is the Thousand Suns. I played a game against Dina, and they brought the vehicle detachment into me.
Or becoming available, right? It comes out this coming weekend? Or is it out
like
already?
That, yeah. I think the codex is out.
It might be.
Just not... Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, you can't... The whole thing's been leaked, of course. You can just read it on the internet. They played with pictures on their phone of the leaks amazingly fast. Like, we got done with our game in like 2 hours. My experience with them so far, with that one game, of course, is that their psychic powers no longer feel oppressive, which is really, really nice. Like, Doombolt is still strong. And the gist of the way it works is they have to reach a number to get a spell off on 2 dice. And then they can choose to roll a 3rd dice, in which case that could push it potentially to the extended benefit of that power that they're using. So their powers range from a secondary movement right before the actual shooting phase. So after the command phase and before the shooting phase. Additionally, and then if they roll like the big one, they get to go flat 6 rather than D6.
Sure.
And then they have one that is reroll 1s to hit or Oath of Moment. Full rerolls to hit army wide. They have another which is +1 AP, or if they get the big one, +2 AP. And then of course Doombolt, which is either D3 or D3 +3. And then what happens is, so they roll their 2 dice, and if they get the number, awesome, they could choose to let it lie. Or they could roll a 3rd dice on cast. When on that 3rd dice, if it is a double of either of those 2 dice, they take D3 mortal wounds for doing it, which I think is it's incredibly balanced from like a power standpoint, because it's, number one, it's not guaranteed, unlike a CSM doing a pack test. And number 2, it actually feels impactful, unlike a CSM pack test. So, they are constantly trying to get these things. Go ahead.
If they roll the double on the 3rd dice, if they roll the double and they take the mortal wounds, on the 3rd, do they still get the benefit?
Yes, they still get to use their power, but they take that damage. It's just so much more likely to roll on 3d6 to roll 2 of the same.
Right. Yeah, than to not make leadership 6, and it doesn't even matter if you fail it, you still get the benefit. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And then they get they get to do their power, and then sometimes they don't even get the full power, and they still potentially take the wounds. And on a higher than likely chance, they'll take those wounds, which is really good. They got rid of a bunch of the stuff that made them super busted. That said, the AP scaling from this army is, whoa, it's gross. Like, it is pretty massive, because if they do their AP strat, they can get guns into like -5 AP, and from any source, shooting into that target, which is insane. Like Vindicators in Thousand Suns, with, if you pop off with your psychic power, are AP 5 Vindicators.
Sure.
Which is crazy from a damage output perspective. So that's a big thing to be very scared of. As far as units, I did play against their new infiltrating like 40 mil dog things. Obviously they're not out yet, but like they were proxying them, and they're just an annoying thing that is easy to hide. and 2 of them cost 90 points. So why not bring 4 of these vehicles that can have armor of contempt, and just be just annoying enough and scary enough that you don't want to engage them necessarily with, say, a scout unit or something like that,
Right.
because they'll tear through them, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention infiltrating units are good. And 2 sets of 2 I think make a lot of sense. 1 set of 1 I think makes a lot of sense. Anything more than that, I would say no. And then if we're talking about what the army does in general really well, of course, there's a ton of AP in that, like just ton of like dev wounds and like high AP weapons. Like all the psychic weapons are crazy, AP wise. And then they have a bunch of crazy amounts of sustained. They have a ton of lethals, and they have a ton of dev wounds. So they're constantly doing damage. But what I have found into them is that it's not necessarily a lot of big, impactful damage. They can kill whatever they decide to look at. So you can guarantee kill stuff with the detachment, the way it works. But you don't have a huge amount of stuff either. So to me, it feels really strong, but very good. Like I think it's not. I don't think it doesn't feel that oppressive yet. That being said, I've not played into the Rubrique or the Zangor detachment. What do you think of the Zangor detachment, Joey?
I think the Zangor detachment is legitimately broken. There's some very, 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 very bad stuff that you could do to people. If you happen to own 18 Zangors on discs, then it's going to be a bad time for a number of people.
Then you have 18 of the best unit in the game in that detachment.
Yeah. I mean, it does also hit, that detachment it's mutant or mutated or whatever the keyword that they have is. But that is
mutant, yeah.
On all of the Zangors, and then it's on Spawn and the Mutalith Vortex Beast. So it's on some really important stuff. What that detachment is capable of is very, very strong. So
it's one of the worst jails I've ever seen. And I think these words came from Nick Fromme, but the damage is anemic, to be fair. But you lock your opponent in their deployment zone for 2, if not 3 turns every game automatically.
Yeah.
Just because they're...
Which is...
Yeah.
We talked about... you talked about Death Guard not being interesting. I think jail is the least interesting thing that you can do in the game of 40k. I think it is horrendously boring, and I don't think it should exist. But it does.
Completely agree. I completely agree. Like jail sucks to play against. As somebody who's been jailed by 18 rates more than once this edition, it feels like a detachment that needs to get nerfed into the ground, because number one, it is the worst kind of meta chase because it's 100 Zangors, and nobody wants to do that. Number two, it just creates an unpleasant play experience. Like, sure, Marines can shoot through them over the course of a couple of turns and then maybe win a game based off of that, but it is so swingy because they're 4 up, 4 up, right? It's like, come on.
Something like that. Yeah. And it's like, I think that there are ways I think there's a handful, five or six probably, ways that detachment could be tailored or managed and not be, it doesn't need to be like nerfed into the ground, but nerfed into fairness.
Sure.
I think that there are many things in that detachment that could be changed to make it fair, still very good, but not just very clearly the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, there needs to be they need to do something to the disc unit. They need to do something to the 4 up, 5 up, for a cheap unit that doesn't do anything and randomly does way too much damage because they all have 3 attacks.
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that just puts them into such a weird position of just like being this awkwardly good army that you have to tech against if it's going to exist. And then that just screws you against so many other armies.
Yep, which is the problem, right? Is that if you're teching into 150 Zangor bodies, then you're losing to every Death Guard player that looks at you.
Yeah, and that's wild. So yeah, Thousand Suns again. I think they're cool. I like the powers didn't feel objectively shattered and broken. They felt strong, but they didn't feel like they did at the beginning of 10th edition, where it was like, oh, so you just win. Got it.
Right. Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
think that's fair.
Yeah. And then so that pretty much covers all of the chaos space. Oh no, we talk about regular CSM. How could I forget? Regular CSM is here, guys. They're back, as it turns out. And they are coming back with a vengeance, largely thanks to Noise Marines. If you can bring 18, I think you just bring 18, which I'm not sure if, or they're 150 points, right?
100 and something, yeah.
Yeah. So you could bring 18 Noise Marines to a CSM army. And then you have ignoring cover AP 2 and 3 weapons that do 2 and 3 damage at 18 inches. And I think that's pretty good. What do you think?
It's pretty solid. It's pretty good. Giving them the extra AP is really important. They're 135.
Oh.
But you still can't. Yeah, so it's 405 points for 18.
Okay.
So specifically, yes, you take in Renegade Raiders, they don't get dark backs, but they do get the detachment rule.
Right.
So they do get +1 AP if they're targeting something on an objective, and that is a thing that they're lacking. So, yeah, I mean that's like part of their thing, right? They're widely AP1, and yes, they ignore cover, which is nice.
Yeah.
So instead of AP1 that doesn't ignore cover in this day and age is basically AP0.
Right.
Their AP1 is actually AP1. But AP1 also just really isn't that big of a deal. So at least AP2 ignore cover is putting pretty much anything on its invul unless you're in cover and have armor contempt and have a 2-up. So
right.
It's
and
good.
It's how many shots with the Blastmaster?
The strength 10 gun is 3 shots per, and you have 2 of them, so it's 6 shots.
6 shots. That's fun. Grey Knights have a similar unit, but they cost over 200 points to put on the table. So
yeah. Grey Knights
their
pay
range
for different.
is a little bit better.
I was going to say the Grey Knights also pay for different abilities.
That's true. You're right. But yes, so CSM is back. Renegade Raiders in particular is back. That said, they didn't exactly have a great showing this past weekend, only coming in at like a 48%, but that still puts them in the upper half of stuff, away from the 40s, away from the lower 40s, and into the mid-range. So you can expect to see them, and when you do see them, be very careful of those Noise Marines because they're just dang good.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about what other CSM elements exist. And that largely comes in with of course, the Shadow Legion, another detachment that we have done to death at this point. But let's talk about the really like the elephant in the room as far as like the really strong list, which right now is your Shadow Legion, lots of stuff, specifically a pile of Screamers and a pile of Raptors. Because the Raptors do so much with the demon, with causing battle shocks, at an additional a -1 on top of the demon -1. So you're battle shocking at -2 most of the time. And it creates big problems for groups, and not to mention they just kind of pop off with a bunch of random mortals, and they just hold things in places because they're Space Marine bodies.
Yeah, and like even the opposite of that too, because like I mean they're great, right? Like Raptors, and you're taking 2 Meltaguns in 5 dudes, and you're just kind of killing things that out of nowhere, really.
Yeah, they hit unreasonably hard in that detachment too.
And like you could also just take like 5 legionaries with a regular Chaos Lord, because he gets the like once per game Super Saiyan thing, and then he can just kill some shit too.
He just kills stuff. Yeah, he's so good.
Like both are very good, and they're the same points cost, which is really wild. So like you have a ton of options in that army.
Yep.
So
and then of course, like, you've been playing them, but screamers are good, man.
I think people are starting to wake up. And they're starting to see it. Screamers are crazy. They're so good.
There's a guy in Germany. There's a guy in Germany who plays for their team, and he and Nick recently met for their podcast. And he was talking about the list, and I'm like, yeah, these are all busted units. He's just talking about, like, you bring Be'lakor. Be'lakor doesn't come out till like round 3 or 4. You bring the Fade Thirster, and then you just bring a bunch of trash. And it's mostly Raptors and Screamers, because Screamers don't die. Period. End of story.
They're so good.
So bring 18 Screamers, if not 9.
Yeah. So, and for the same points, right? Because if you bring 18, then you're looking at units of 6, which is fine. They're still that's gonna kill a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But you can also just take 9 Screamers and 9 Flamers, and just have scoring trash for the end until the end of time.
While that Fade Thirster goes around and kills a target every turn.
And then Be'lakor can clean up the game at turn 4, turn 5.
Yep.
And it's so there's so much scoring. And all of your scoring is also simultaneously doing a pretty solid amount of damage and screening basically the whole board.
Yeah, and when you have Screamers and Raptors, your Bloodthirster will never get intervened.
No.
Because you just set it up so you charge the other things around it and then go with the Bloodthirster.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Again, Chaos is really good right now. Obviously, the theme of today is mostly CSM and the CSM-related Marines, or the Chaos Marines themselves. But, again, it is a Chaos world, guys. Be careful out there. Be ready for it. So how do we get ready for it? What are the ways that we can go about it? Let's talk about the generally powerful stuff that you need to bring into this meta to deal with problems like all of these Marines. Now, as a pointy-eared player, you have a lot of this. Tell us, what are those generally good things to have?
Yeah, so I guess we'll say our top 5 is what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the right order, but the 5 things that are really important: damage 3, high AP, anti-infantry, or just weight of fire or weight of attacks if that's what you have, and screening units. As it turns out, Drukhari just has all of that naturally. Not everybody does, and even with that, Drukhari is not, and you can tell by their win percentage, is not an easy army to play. So, like, most of the time when you play Drukhari, you play an average player or somebody who just has them because they're fun, and they feel like shit. And then you play against somebody who knows what they're doing, and you're like, oh man, this army is actually really good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's wild. It's such a stark contrast between the 2 different types of Drukhari that you're going to encounter. And Eldar, I think Eldari is much the same, because they, without having fate dice, they're just not survivable anymore. Now they are actually glass cannons again. And so once you deal with, like, if you survive that initial onslaught, then you're fine. For the average list, obviously. Yannari is a different story, and that's whatever, but yeah.
Yeah. Now, the reason all of these things are very important to bring, starting with damage 3 weapons, right? If you have access to damage 3, then things like Possessed, then things like, what are the other 3 wounds?
Chosen.
Chosen. How could I forget the Chosen? Possessed and Chosen no longer pose any real threat to you. Sure, they have
Yep.
like access to invulns, which is great, but they're on 5-ups if you have damage 3 weapons usually, unless you're
Right.
just talking about predators, in which case you have to stack AP to get them there.
But also,
but-
flamers and screamers are 3 wounds.
Right. So there's lots of stuff in the Chaos book that have 3 wounds, and so you should just have as much of that as you can get that doesn't take you out of game. So just find logical things that make sense for that.
Yeah.
And like high AP is for any meta when it comes down to it, unless we're talking about an elf meta, obviously.
Yeah, anytime that power armor is prevalent, then high AP is necessary.
Exactly. And as long as you can push at least AP2 on a lot of stuff, like you're putting your enemy on 5-ups almost all the time, and that kills Marines real good.
Yeah, and I don't think that when I think about like if I need high AP, I'm not looking at 4 5. I'm 2 3 is really, can I put a Terminator on its invul?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
2, the ability to push 2 in almost any circumstance, I think, is the best way to think about it. So if you have ways to strip cover, if you have ways to push the additional AP, or to deny armor of contempt or whatever else, like that's the kind of thing. Those are the kind of things I would take into consideration. Anti-infantry is just good into Space Marines because Space Marines are all infantry.
Yeah.
Zangor are infantry.
What are you gonna
just
do?
make that easier on you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Way to Fire, obviously good. So Way to Fire, good units to think about, like the Gladiator Reaper, right? Gladiator Reaper is a unit that just goes into infantry really well. It has a million guns. It's sustained 2s, and then has a lot of really dumb things that it can do into large packs of walking units. So bring the Way to Fire if you have access to it. Other things that are really good Way to Fire, like what in the Drukhari Codex is something that has like a ton of guns?
Not necessarily guns, I think, and there are things that do. That's just not generally the list that I build. I like fighting. So like weight of dice is witches. They're 3 attacks apiece, so you're looking at 30 attacks from 10 witches. The same with Hellions. You're looking at 30 attacks from 10 Hellions. Grotesques can, because they can all take a flamer, and so you even just 3 grotesques, which is only 80 points. That's 3 flamers. Like that is far from nothing.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of just things all over. Venoms are fantastic. You're looking at 2 splinter cannons, so they're 6 shots, but they do have sustained, and they're basically heavy bolters, but they have anti-infantry, so that's great.
It's a great time to be a Drukhari player right now, because of Void Raven bombers, because that has all of the things you want.
It does,
from everywhere on the table.
Yeah.
They're coming in at a 56% win rate from over the weekend. Just to be clear, they're number 3.
Only from Scary. That doesn't count.
Oh, fine. But they're playing well. They match up into this meta shockingly well. If I'm going to talk about like things I'm considering for Marines, number 1, the data slate's really important here, guys. I think Vindicators are going to get priced out of contention moving into the next data slate. If they're not 200 points, I don't know what anyone is doing, because they're good. They're too good. And
if they're not 200 points, I hope you have 3.
Oh, I have 3.
Yeah, that's all there is to it.
If they only go up 5 points, I'm bringing 3.
Yeah.
They're just that good. But even then, they have to put I think they should, if anything, they should switch with Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Like Redemptor Dreadnoughts being down to 185 and then Vindicators being 210 would make sense, because Vindicators are amazing and Redemptor Dreadnoughts are awful.
But they are damage 3.
They're D6 blast 1 guns. Of course, there's hazardous that comes with that, and they can do
I think
work.
if they dip below 200, I can see 3. If they get right at 200, definitely 2, and 3
Yeah.
is like is possible.
Yeah, like they're a really good anti-melee because of the -1 damage.
Mhm.
They're 2-up save. They don't have an invuln, of course, and like some shooting armies are just going to pick them apart.
Mhm.
Especially like things with Vindicators themselves. But again, if Vindicators go up, the entire meta is way different.
Right.
So which is really cool. So I'm really hoping for that, honestly. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rolling Vindicators out. The Predator Destructor, I think, might be the most like glowed up unit going into this meta because they're strength 9, AP 2 against infantry, damage 3 guns.
Mhm.
Sure, it's not a million attacks, but they're 48-inch range and they kill chosen by the dozen.
Right.
So really good units to bring from a Space Marine standpoint. And then I'm curious and interested. Is it Brutalis season? Is it finally time to bring the pincers to the table? I don't think so, but I want to. Bring their points down to 140 because
Good
that's where they
God.
belong. That's where they belong. Let's face it, they're trash otherwise. 150 they'd be fine, but like 140,
I
mean
could accept
Ballistus
150.
Dreadnoughts are 140.
140.
Ballistus
Yeah,
Dreadnoughts are 140.
which is probably a slight problem. I don't know. What are Brutalis? What are they? T8, 10 wounds or 9?
They are T10. They are
Okay.
12 wounds. They have
And do they
all their
bracket?
attacks are twin linked. They're AP 3/3 damage in melee.
Do they bracket?
Yes.
Yeah, because they're 12 wounds.
Yeah.
They have a 3-up save and no invul.
2-up. 2-up save, no invul.
2-up, no invul, and no damage reduction.
No
Sure.
damage reduction. Yeah.
They move
140
8.
makes sense. What?
They move 8.
8? Yeah, they're slow.
Yeah. So yeah, I could see one. I would enjoy 150. 140 does scare me a little bit, but that's fine.
If we go down to 140, I'm bringing 3. It'll be just so much
fair.
fun. I still think Ultramarine Gladius is fine. Like, you don't even have to change the build. Like, the same
No,
build
not really.
still works. You bring the 3 Dreadnoughts to sit on your expansion, and then you just have Calgar and Gilliman ready to charge whatever comes at you as they try to take you off your expansion. And then you just have, like, a Reaper, some Vindicators, and that's it. You're done. That's your whole list. So you just score as many points as you can and don't die very often.
If anything, the Calgar company hero and whatever else he joins, Brick is better with the change to no prisoners.
Yes.
So
yeah,
he's not 3 units anymore.
He's so good. He needs to go up. He's too cheap at 210, so cheap. I think.
Yeah, ostensibly he's not cheap. 210 is a lot, but he's so good.
Yeah, damage 3, twin linked. Yeah, he's great. Really, really strong unit. If anything, if you really want to nerf him, you take company heroes and you increase those points instead, because 105 or 110 points for that unit is probably too little.
That's fair.
Considering they compare with every Space Marine captain.
They have the Primaris keyword, right?
They are...
Or whatever the keyword is
Tacticus?
that Primaris have.
Tacticus,
right, okay.
Yeah.
Which is what they have.
I think so, yeah.
But isn't Calgar Gravis?
Yeah, he could pair with him, though.
I know. I think maybe they should just say that he can't.
That would be fine. But that unit can go up, and I would understand if they did it.
Yeah.
But if you only let Calgar pair with... and that would actually be... It works because of his Vitrix.
Yeah.
That's the only reason it works, is because they're Tacticus models.
Oh, sure. And they are part of his unit, though, right?
Yeah, they're all one unit, so he shares Gravis and Tacticus, which is fascinating.
Fine. It's a thing.
But yeah, price up the company heroes so that they're harder to take. Like, one unit will still be viable, but then it's another choice that you have to make. and then just like balance some sheets so that we can still bring stuff and not get into the T-Sense problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course the Stormlance build that John Lennon popularized, that a bunch of other people have been playing recently with the Stormraven bomber and whatnot. Like, it's a very specialized kind of build. It's full of interesting things. It's got plenty of high damage and enough output and movement to get to compete with some of these armies. Like, I can't imagine Thousand Suns has a good time into an army that can just run at it. So
yeah, they kind of never have.
Yeah. And then my last little addition is just going to be Hellblasters. I think Hellblasters are going to walk into this. They're only damage 2.
Right.
But most of what you're firing into are damage 2. But they're going to be strength 8 when you're shooting at them. And they're going to be like AP 3.
And they're going to shoot like 3 or 4 times. So
they're going to shoot a lot. Yeah.
Like, Hellblasters never became bad.
Never.
It's just that you took other things because you needed other things.
Yep.
And it might be time for Hellblasters to come back.
Yeah. They just weren't broken anymore. Like,
right.
In Gladius, they were busted, especially Dark Angel's Gladius. It was so gross. But now they're just good. They're just a good sound choice. And you could bring multiple groups of 5 and deal with problems that way. Or one big group of 10 with a character that gives them sustained. Like, there's lots of cool stuff that you could do with Hellblasters. And I think it might be one of those times where you just like pal around in like transport and just kind of blow stuff up.
Yeah.
So that's everything I think would be relevant.
Yeah, I think so.
Anything else you want to bring up today about CSM and the Chaos Space Marine meta that we're jumping into?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think that's pretty much that's the shtick. I think we're gonna see probably a shift from vanilla CSM coming out of Bile going back to Raiders because of Noise Marines. Yeah. Just because that list is less swingy. The Bile possessed chosen list is fantastic, but it is very swingy. It's very much like they're going to pick their go turn. If it doesn't work, then they lose the game.
Yeah.
And that's why their win percentage isn't higher, because that is the balancing factor, that sometimes it just doesn't work.
Could Bile do well with Noise Marines too, though? Because then when you roll that 6, it ain't so bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
Because then they get some reasonable shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not such a huge point deficit that you're putting too much into vehicles.
Right. Definitely just like at a glance, I like Raiders feels better.
Yeah, Raiders definitely is the best, but
I'm sure that there's something that could be done with Bile. I'd have to, like I said, I'd have to look at it and see what they can really benefit from in that.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be optimal.
So
okay. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for us today.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, next time we're going to try doing the lore thing where Joey's going to convince me that 40k lore is cool.
One of these days it's going to happen. I don't know when it is. One of these days it's going to happen. We were preparing for Storm, and then this past week I had the post-con plague. So I was sick, and then when I finally was not sick this weekend, I had a 3-page paper that was due on Sunday when I stopped feeling sick on Saturday. So it's fine. We'll get there. We will. We will indeed. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here, especially if you stuck around the whole hour. Please tell your friends about us. All we ask is not for your money, but for your ears. Thank you all again. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time at the Yop. See you around.